We were 7 bombers, 14 bombs and 19 hours from takeoff to the strike. It was the dead of the night and an entire nation was sleeping in Iran. But the U.S. stealth bombers pulled off a midnight strike. It was a hammer blow on Iran's nuclear ambitions with massive airstrikes on their 3 nuclear facilities, Natanz, Fordo and Isfahan. Now, the United States of America claims to have decimated all the 3 facilities, but the focus is largely on Fordo, one of the nuclear facilities in Iran that was believed to be out of reach for most militaries across the world, simply because of how deep under the ground this facility was located. Even though the U.S. says it is still open for dialogue and hopes that Iran accepts their deal, Tehran has made it clear the time for diplomacy is over. Now, how is Iran really planning to retaliate? Well, remember, military action is the obvious retaliatory strike, which would take a little more time in planning. What Iran plans to do immediately could have larger ramifications on the global crude oil supply chain. The Iranian parliament has backed closing of the Strait of Hormuz, and this, remember, could effectively cripple the global oil supply chain. Let's tell you why. The Strait of Hormuz is located between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. Why is it significant? Because the world's most strategically important choke points lies at the Strait of Hormuz. It serves as the primary export route for Gulf producers and allows for about 20% world's daily oil consumption. So how much does India really depend on this particular Strait of Hormuz, and could the closing of Strait of Hormuz severely impact India? Let's take you through some figures. Why is India keeping a close watch? Because 5.5 million barrels of oil per day is India's daily oil imports, out of which 1.5 to 2 million barrels per day passes via the Strait of Hormuz. This is something that the Union Petroleum Minister Hardeep Puri has also mentioned. 40% of India's oil imports pass via the Strait of Hormuz, and that's why it becomes very, very critical for the Strait of Hormuz to be open. Now, amid concerns of oil supply as well as energy security here in India, the Union Petroleum Minister Hardeep Puri has assured that New Delhi is closely monitoring the situation and that the government has diversified its oil supplies over the years. He also said that oil companies have enough stock that can last several weeks.
And out of the 5.5 million barrels of crude oil that India consumes daily, about 1.5 and 2 million only come through the Straits of Hormuz. We import roughly 4 million barrels through other routes, and our companies, the oil marketing companies, have enough stocks. Most of them have stocks up to 3 weeks. One of them has, in fact, 25 days stocks. And we are also confident that we can increase the supply of crude through other routes.
Now, what really are the options before India? India could certainly need to depend further on oil imports from both Russia and the U.S. India has already increased the share of both Russian oil imports and that of the United States in the last 1 month. But if Iran chooses to shut the Hormuz trade route, India needs to turn to alternative sources, something that the government has already done and is working upon. The oil import from Russia as of May 2025 was 1.96 million barrels per day. In June 2025, it's 2.2 million barrels per day. What about the ones coming from U.S., the oil import from America? In May 2025, it stood at 0.28 million barrels per day. In June this year, it rose to 0.43 million barrels per day. That, ladies and gentlemen, is where the current situation stands. Of course, we'll have to wait and watch how the West Asian region and the Strait of Hormuz particularly, whether it's shut or remains open from the Iranian side.